to this again special morning briefing on the third anniversary of the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I think this is a special morning briefing because of different reasons. We started this format 3 years ago, exactly on last Monday, I have to say, unfortunately, because of the war, of the Russian war, the large-scale war against Ukraine. So I think that format was set up also to inform German and also European wider public about the events in Ukraine, because we also understood this is a major shift in European and international politics. So I think for us it's a very special morning briefing. And second, this is also cooperation we do this time with the Eastern Partnership think tank network, which is also organized by DGAP, by my center, my colleagues, and supported by the European Commission. So we also have people who are part of the Eastern Partnership think tank network, and also a warm welcome for them. As Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine enters its 4th year, Ukraine faces a decisive moment on the front lines and in terms of Western support. US President Trump's decision to negotiate directly with Putin puts Ukraine in a very difficult position, but not only Ukraine, but also Europe, I would say. There is a completely new reality with regard to US support and US policy. And as we saw with the UN Security Council decision, the US is now also voting together with Russia and North Korea. So I think there's a very different reality also in US politics. Europe, focused on its own domestic crisis, will not be able to replace the US as a key supporter of Ukraine in the military field. European countries will need to significantly increase spending on their own security, as well as their continued support for Ukraine. They will have to play a role in securing a deal between Russia and the US. So I think Europe also has to redefine and maybe really top up also its support. We want to discuss today the military situation and perspective in Ukraine, maybe asking also about Russian capabilities until summer. So I think we should also look into to the other side, how negotiations are seen from an Ukrainian perspective and how this all impacts on the domestic situation in Ukraine. Finally, we are the expectation. What are the expectations also towards the new German government? We have 3 very good speakers here. Very happy to have again András, my colleague who is senior fellow at the Center for Order and Governance in Eastern Europe, Russia, and Central Asia here at the DGAP.
Good morning.
Welcome, András. You really look nice this morning.
I know.
The tie. We have Ina Sovsun, who is member of the Ukrainian parliament from the Liberal Party Golos and former Deputy Minister of Education and Science of Ukraine. Ina, warm welcome also for you. And we have Olha Aivazovksa, head of the board of the civil society network Opora. Good morning, Olga. I want a big thanks to send this time, especially to my colleague Anastasia Pochumban, who has mainly organized this event, but also our event team and everybody who supported this event and organizing this event. So András, let's start as a tradition when we're focusing on Ukraine, and I'm very happy that we have also 2 speakers today from Ukraine. András, let's focus on the military situation. Yeah, we can also have an update what's going on at the moment on the ground, but I would ask you a bit more for a perspective within the next month. So where we are heading also with this changing environment, what are the key challenges also for Ukraine? How does it look like with the support also of weaponry? So what are maybe the main challenges also for the Ukrainian side?
Thank you, Stefan. Good morning again to all of you. And thank you, Stefan, for these very easy questions, as I have like some 6 minutes to answer all of them, right? So if we start from the ground situation and zoom out, we may say that on the ground, the situation is largely stable. Russian troops are gradually, slowly gaining ground in Kursk. So it looks like that Russia is not ready for a compromise over Kursk, but they are trying to push the Ukrainian forces gradually out of the salient. By now, less than half of the original Kursk territory is under Ukrainian control, and constant Russian bombardments and North Korean troops appearing again make it very likely that Russia will continue pushing the Ukrainians out. Good news, Ukrainian forces managed to stabilize, at least for a while, the situation both at Pokrovsk and also at Toretsk. So the Russian slow grinding advance that we have seen in the last month seems to be slowing down. Sometimes Ukraine is able to even launch small counterattacks, which is something new, taking into account the last month. So looks like that the change of command, particularly when it comes to forces in the east, so the appointment of General Drapati and the number of other younger, more dynamic, very experienced commanders has done a lot of good on the tactical situation. If we go higher on the operational and strategic level, the largest challenge Ukraine is facing is still manpower. So in terms of ammunition supplies, in terms of heavy weaponry, the situation is a lot better than it was a year ago. One hears from Ukrainian colleagues that what the artillery superiority that Russia had earlier, 5-1, sometimes 10-1, this is gone. So Ukrainians already have nearly parity in terms of artillery firepower, and Western guns are better, more accurate, have longer range. In terms of attack drones, smaller system FPVs, Ukrainians are not only in parity, but in the technological level, even a bit ahead of Russia. So, and the same assessment, like that in terms of supplies, material supplies, hardware supplies, for the moment, Ukraine seems to be okay, and this is unlikely to break in the upcoming month. So in terms of supplies, they are fine compared to the possibilities. And good news, even though there were news emerging that the United States might turn off the Starlink system as a form of blackmailing Ukraine into an agreement, Elon Musk has openly said that this is not going to happen. So the Starlink, and so communicate also US officials. So the Starlink and also its military version, the Starshield, continue functioning. So in the short run, meaning the few upcoming months, the biggest challenge is still manpower. Ukraine needs to modernize its recruitment system to make the recruitment system a lot more efficient. It's not true that Ukraine is running out of fighting age men. From time to time, one can read it even in Western media, not only in Russian propaganda. No, there are still military-aged men, able-bodied men in the country. Just the recruitment system, the mobilization system doesn't see them properly. There are too many exceptions, too much corruption in the system. So it's more a question of efficiency. Now the new system of allowing men below the age of 25 to join the army voluntarily, providing larger significant financial incentives, this seems to work. We will see whether this momentum can be upheld. This is a step definitely into the right direction. Another challenge, I would say number 2, is still the organizational functioning of Ukrainian armed forces. Again, good news. Since the end of January, Ukraine finally put some inefficient practices to an end. So, for example, the practice of continuously setting up new brigades and delegating new recruits into new unexperienced brigades, this has come to an end. Now new recruits are sent as a replenishment, reinforcement to experienced brigades. So military experience can get transferred, military experience can get preserved, and new recruits consequently have a much higher chances of surviving in battle. So the practice of setting up new brigades, so ending this practice, that's definitely a good move. A second good move, Ukraine finally, after years of internal debates, introduced a new level of command. So above the brigade levels, there is now a new level of command, army corps. One army corps is responsible for coordinating the work of some 5 brigades plus other forces. So right now, this new level of command is expected to make the command and control a lot more efficient. Earlier, above the brigades, there was nothing like in the West, like army corps or divisions, only the army groups. And that was just way too large. I mean, an army group had to control the work of 20, 25, 30 brigades. That's just way too much. Now, with introducing the army corps, that's again a step into the good direction. So to cut the long story short, in terms of material supplies, I do not expect a major crisis until the summer. We will see how things develop thereafter, but in the few months we see forward, in terms of material supplies, Ukraine is fine. They are holding the front line, even gaining some momentum, even becoming able to counterattack. Still, the challenge of manpower supplies, this prevails. Ukraine needs to work a lot on them. So that's it from me for the start. And if there are any questions, I'm doing my best to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, András. Thank you for this update. Can I just have a one follow-up question? How do you see the Russian capabilities? So how much they have also at the moment in terms of material and troops? And might there be an interest to have a break, to use this opportunity Trump offers to some extent to renew maybe also what is missing?
Definitely, yes. On the Russian side, the main reason why Russia could maintain the present operational intensity and operational tempo for 3 years is not Russia's own arms production, but the reactivation of ex-Soviet stockpiles, which they bring out from the storages, reactivate them, and send them to the front lines. That's why Russia is able to maintain the hardware losses, or has been able to maintain the hardware losses for years. However, this intensity can be maintained only as long as the ex-Soviet stockpiles last. And these stockpiles are gradually running out. It's not the fact that we see Russians attacking on motorcycles, attacking on quads, attacking on golf cars, sometimes attacking on unarmored trucks. It's not because they are so innovative. This is because they are running out of modern infantry fighting vehicles, so they send to the front line whatever they have. The same thing applies to tanks. We see already T-55, sometimes even T-54s getting sent to battle. 70 years old technology. It's again not something, a big innovation. This is kind of a must. So as ex-Soviet stockpiles are running out, the technological degradation of the Russian armed forces is getting faster and faster. Same goes for artillery, same goes for a lot of systems. So this is definitely a constraint, a bottleneck on their side. There are various calculations how long these stockpiles last, but definitely not more than 2 years, and 2 years is just the absolute maximum. And there is one more thing. You cannot send your last tank to Ukraine. Russia needs to keep some weaponry, some arms in reserve, because somebody needs to be in the Caucasus, somebody needs to be in the NATO border, somebody needs to be on the border with China. So there is certainly a threshold which Russia cannot send to Ukraine. So yes, they are definitely running out of steam, of hardware, slowly, gradually, and the same is visible in terms of manpower supplies. They are radically increasing the payments for new recruits. They're not doing that because they are nice or they care about their people, but because they don't have any more recruits for smaller amounts of money. So the increased salary offered to the recruits indicates recruitment problems. Inside Russia, there are more and more discussions about the need for a second wave of mobilization, which is heavily opposed by the regional elites, by the oligarchs, by the industrial elites, basically by everybody except the military. So in terms of manpower, the problem with manpower is present not only on the Russian, but on the Ukrainian side as well. So not only the Ukrainian, but also the Russian side. The difference is that Russia theoretically could still go for another wave of mobilization. This is not something that Ukraine could do because Ukraine has been doing this already. So in the longer run, the main bottleneck I see on the Russian side is military hardware, particularly heavy weaponry. But again, not until the summer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Can everybody unmute themselves? Just check, because I think there are 1 or 2 persons seems to be seems to be unmuted. Ina, let's move to you. Again, thank you for making it. What is the mood currently in the society? How these geopolitical changes, especially in the West, impact also on domestic policy? And maybe how you see this whole discussion about possible elections also in Ukraine, which I think is a very, very problematic discussion from my point of view.
Lovely. Sorry, I'm on my way to the parliament. Well, as you can imagine, the mood is very much defined exactly by the recent geopolitical developments that we are all seeing. And those developments have, of course, come at, in itself, a difficult time in Ukraine's history. So we are seeing the third anniversary of the full-scale invasion. And I think if you ask anyone in how they're feeling, I think the first thing that they will honestly say to you is that people are extremely exhausted. It's very difficult to live under those conditions that we are forced to live under. People are tired. People are living nightly through nightly attacks of drones into their cities. They are living under this pressure of news from the front line. Many people have their loved ones on the front lines themselves. So I think this feeling of exhaustion after 3 years is very strong in the country overall, and it dictates a lot the reaction to the developments that we're seeing in international politics. And I would tell you this: if we had this event 3 weeks before, I think we would largely focus on the internal political dynamic, which is tense. It's tense. There are lots of disagreements internally. There are lots of discussions about corruption and so on and so forth. So that all is part of the debate. But I will tell you this, that the situation has changed dramatically in terms of internal political discussion after Donald Trump called Vladimir Putin. I would say that after that, the society, weirdly enough, got back together, and there was a very strong feeling of unity among everybody, because everyone felt, and that's the second feeling that I think is very common in the country right now, is a very strong feeling of injustice as to what is going on. People feeling that, especially when Donald Trump claimed in one of his press briefings that Ukraine shouldn't have started this war. I think this was very painful for everybody to hear. This after what we have been through, after all the destructions, death, loss of life, loss of everything. We hearing that we have started this war was extremely painful, to be truth. So this feeling of injustice is the second one. The third feeling, and you have to talk about the feelings, so that is what I'm trying to capture here, the momentum that we are on. I would say that there is a strong and justifiably so feeling of uncertainty. So, I mean, there is great uncertainty in the world overall, but for Ukraine, of course, the stakes are extremely high. So it can go into very different directions, which will mean very, very different outcomes for us here. So I think that's why everybody is so tense, so very closely following the news and trying to figure out what is to happen, what is to come out of all of this, because again, the stakes for us are extremely high. So I think that that those three words, the fatigue, exhaustion, feeling of injustice, and feeling of uncertainties is what captures the mood over here. There is no, however, feeling of everything is over, we have lost, and then everything is done. That's not the prevailing feeling. It's actually otherwise. Everyone is saying, okay, so the situation is tough at this moment. What can we do to fight back against what is going on? I can see that both in the society, following the social media, talking to my friends and all of that, but I can also see that among politicians in the parliament. I think there is this feeling like let's get back together and fight against this big international challenges that we are dealing. So I think that this feeling of unity, which of course was very significant in the first weeks of the full-scale invasion, is very much back on in the society and in the politics as well. There is also very strong unity in the issue that you asked to address, and that is the question of elections. And I'm absolutely sure Olga, after me, will talk more about that, about the technical aspects of that, of why elections cannot be conducted at this point, and so on. But I will tell you this, from a political standpoint, there is not a single political party that is calling for elections right now. Everyone is saying one thing: we can't hold elections. It will be A, illegal, B, technically impossible, C, politically very challenging, because any elections is a competition, is where you have to criticize each other, where you have to fight against each other. And that is not what Ukraine needs at this point. So that is why there is no one calling for elections at this point, but instead everybody is talking about we have to ensure security of the country first, and then we can talk about anything else. So this general feeling that we should make sure that we have long-term security guarantees, that's absolutely number one. And without those security guarantees, we can't really talk about anything else. Because you can't plan your future, be it your personal future or political future, under this uncertainty. It's real life and death uncertainty for us, realistically speaking. So I think that ensuring those security guarantees is critical for us right now, and I think that there are lots of debates internally, but then also there are lots of delegations traveling to the European states, because I think that there is a growing understanding that we should strengthen the cooperation with the European side and make sure that Europeans are there for us, so that Ukrainians are not left alone with the deal that is made between Trump and Putin, which Ukrainians will basically be forced to accept without any other allies that are willing to support Ukraine. So I think that now what is critically important, and I think that would be my last point here, it's critically important for Europeans to figure out in between themselves, yourselves, and the Ukrainians as well, how to build a new architecture of security for the whole European continent, without relying on the United States as heavily as Europe has been relying over the last 70 years, because apparently that's not a good security guarantee. What we have seen over the last couple of weeks, it definitely shows that there should be a different approach to security on the European continent. And Ukraine is very much willing to be part of that security architecture. Let's be honest, we do have the strongest army in Europe at this point. With the right approach, we can manage, even if American aid stops altogether. That is not an ideal scenario. That is not what we are looking into. But we are not in a situation where we automatically have to give up if Americans say we stop any support. But of course, it will be extremely painful and difficult, and Europeans should really think about how to build this new security architecture together with the Ukrainians, keeping in mind that Ukraine does have the strongest army in Europe. And on some issues, frankly speaking, we do have the best technology as well. I'll give you an example. Ukrainians do produce the most modern drones that are needed in the modern warfare. We can't buy drones from anyone else. What we should do is ask our partners in the European Union, in Europe overall, to buy Ukrainian drones for the Ukraine's defense, because that's the field where we had to learn how to be best at. So that's how we should work together, ensuring security for the continent. So I think I should stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very good. Can I just have a very relatively short follow-up question exactly on this? So what do you expect from the new German Chancellor and the new German government? We just had an election. I think we have some messages also from the German side, which are somehow promising from my perspective, but we will have to see. So what are your expectations on Germany particularly?
Well, first of all, we are, I know that there are lots of public tensions between the Ukrainian side and German side, however, we do remember that Germany is the biggest contributor to Ukraine, and it's the biggest aid to Ukraine in Europe overall. So of course we want more, we need more, because again, it's a life and death issue for us. But we truly appreciate what has been done. But of course, we also believe that much more can be done, and both in terms of Germany is a huge industrial powerhouse, right? It has never put its industrial power to good use in terms of revamping, reinvigorating its defense industry. So I think that is what is critical now is to make sure that there is funding available to the German industry to produce what is needed for the modern war, and something that is needed on the front lines in Ukraine over here can be artillery, air defense. I'll give you an example. We highly appreciate the Iris-T air defense system that we got from Germans. It's extremely efficient. It works very well. We would be happy to have many more of those, especially with the American Patriots. Becoming a complicated issue. More Iris-Ts is critically needed. The production lines for those are extremely long. But if there is a new production line set up, then of course you can produce more, and that can be extremely helpful for us, ensuring the security of our airspace. The same goes for artillery. The same goes for tanks or armored vehicles. All of that Germany is famous for producing. It just needs to set up to increase its production. Second, and then of course there is this big issue of Taurus missiles, which of course we have been talking about for a while. Germany kept on claiming that it cannot provide that unless the Americans are providing something similar. Mr. Merz has when he was in opposition, which as I understand is a different political position than being in power, but when he was in opposition, he was claiming that he's willing to provide Taurus missiles to Ukraine. I think we should get back to that discussion, and then he should really keep his word in doing that, because missiles is something that is the market is pretty short. So we do need those to be able to defend ourselves. But I also think it is critically important for the Germans also to start using what we call here the Danish model, which is basically giving money to buy off the Ukrainian weapons which are produced here in Ukraine. Or what is called the Norwegian model, which is setting up the joint enterprises of producing something that Ukraine needs, where we have the technology, but we might not have the investment for that. So all of that is needed. And then, of course, continued financial support, because unfortunately, we spend 100% of what we collect here in terms of taxes or revenues. Everything goes to the front line on our side. So basically, without foreign aid, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to do very basic stuff like pay salaries to the teachers or pay salaries to the doctors. So that is going to be very much needed as well. So we hope that the new government is formed as soon as possible in Germany, because we understand that this interim period does not provide for strong decisions being made. So I think that that is also important to do it as soon as possible, given the turbulence geopolitical that we are seeing now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Olha, I would move to you, asking also about how you see from a civil society perspective the situation in the country. Maybe you also want to comment on the election question, because I think this is something the Russians really pushing for, also the US, and maybe also how you see also developments with Europe. But yeah, please.
Good morning to everyone. My brain doesn't work perfectly because we had 6 hours of alarm during this night in Kiev, but still, this is our reality. So I have to start from the general statement. What does it mean, elections for us, for Ukrainians? Now, it's not just about some technical process. The technical issues which are very visible for many who have minimum expertise in the topic, what does it mean, electoral, competitive, democratic process, is not something new. But at the same time, I have to say that shaming and blaming of Ukraine and its own leader was started in 2023 in early June from the US side. And we had a survey about that. We did research. We collected data analysis from social media, how this advertising was started, when, and who shared the narratives that Ukraine is not democracy anymore, that Ukraine has dictator now, and Zelensky became dictator. So this is a part of very well-prepared propaganda and disinformation campaigning against Ukraine, and it was very successful. I will send you a link a little bit later during our Q&A session. We did a big research about that, and we saw how the organized communities in Twitter and social medias was used for highlighting this topic from 0 point, because it was started in June 2023, when it was a half a year till parliamentary elections and more than 1 year before constitutional terms for presidential elections. So Ukraine became under the pressure about elections from MAGA group far before the problems and before new administration became in power groups in Washington. And it was produced by MAGA and some other stakeholders from this political and, ideological group for now. I have to say that in 2023, we started to aware our partners what is the problem for organizing elections during wartime and how to work on the defending of our democracy, not just rejection. The idea to have election is a solution, but preparation for having elections after the end of martial law will be the best answer to this aggressive campaigning. Unfortunately, the topic was very toxic in Ukraine because Ukrainian society still has super unity about the position that we are not going to have elections till the end of martial law. And I can answer to you a very, very predictable question, why? Because partially Ukrainian society believes that elections is not just about voting process, it's about competitive campaigning and all groups needs to be involved. So it has to be participative process with refugees, military, IDPs, and those people who are suffering now somewhere else out of that cities which still have schools and where we can open polling station physically. Another answer is very, I don't know, maybe romantic a little bit, but there is a huge request for have justice, and that's why people in Ukraine do not believe that it will be free and fair elections without those heroes who are fighting for saving Ukrainian independence and territorial integrity. So they believe that if elections will start very soon, till the end of martial law, soldiers will not back home. They will not participate as voters very much. But the problem is that they will not have any opportunity to be candidates. to propose and promote some political solutions for security and defense system. That's why only corrupted bad guys will have a chance to participate as a candidates. So this is about fairness of the process. This is about accountability and justice for society, which see who is on front line today and who needs to be a part of next political circles. And I have to say that it was not a big news for us than when that last time MAGA groups with their anti-Ukrainian advertising in the US was very successful because it was the narratives which help US Congress to block military aid for Ukraine and postponed it for half a year. So that campaign was successful because we decrease a level of support of Ukrainian society to defend itself because Congress couldn't adopt decision about military aid. And this gap of time, this gap of military support had dramatic results on the battlefield because it was about physical equal opportunity from both sides to fight against each other, from Ukrainian side to defend ourselves. On some of the directions on the battlefield, we had proportion on alternatively, like 1 from Ukrainian side and 9 from the Russian side. It was predictable that it was a part of strategy. So I've been in the US in November last year. I saw the electoral process. I had few very important meetings with Republicans after election day, next day after election day. And because they knew me, because they know that Opora is very active with election observation, during our introductory remarks or welcoming remarks from both sides, the first reaction was, Ola, you need to be ready to organize elections or following that elections as a watchdog group very soon. I had a question, what type of elections are you talking about? Because if it's about, local, for example, we need to have it in 2025 according to Constitution in October and potentially in Lvivska Oblast, Chernivetska Oblast, Zakarpatska Oblast. It's possible to reload the electoral process for the local communities because it's more or less safe. It's very close to Western border. And there is no, I can say that there is no problem, but the level of insecurity is much more lower than in Kyiv or central part of Ukraine, eastern part or southern part. They said, no, it's about leadership. So it's about, first of all, presidential election, not even about...
Schon besser.
Sorry?
Wiebke, can you unmute? Sorry, mute.
So it wasn't even about parliamentary because new administration doesn't care about Ukrainian parliament. They are focusing on President Zelensky because there is a clashes between previous history of the impeachment and some, background of this story. So that's why the statement about from the new administrations that Ukraine has to organize elections very soon, that the rating of President Zelensky is very low, that just new president needs to sign agreement, we are very predictable. But I have to say that we are not going to take everything into account without any protection of our democracy, because democracy during wartime needs to be protected even better than in peacetime. Because Russian interference will be very powerful if we will not protect informational space, cyberspace, physical space for voting process, or we will not organize as much polling stations abroad, or we will not find solutions for security, predictability, or some reactions and reflections on potential terroristic attacks, or all over Ukraine alarm during E-Day, which will decrease dramatically turnout till 10%, for example, and nobody will accept from political perspective the results of these elections. So I've shared with you already the statement which was signed for more than 400 NGOs. It's not, physical person. It was about NGOs and entities which are against the elections during wartime. And you can find there a lot of arguments which are very visible and understandable, but we need to repeat, which we share with our partners in autumn 2023, after the statement of Lindsey Graham, Republican congressman, when he visited Ukraine, and he was from pro-Trump's Republican groups, but at the end he is a good friend of Ukraine, but he reacted in Kyiv on narratives which were already a baseline for these discussions about reloading of political system in Ukraine in MAGA's groups in the US. So back to the numbers. First of all, we don't have a budget for elections. I have to say honestly that protection of elections, it's about money too. It's not just about, people's will to protect it. It's about equipment for Central Election Commission. It's about protection, physical protection of polling stations. It's about protection, physical protection of observers, candidates, political groups, and so on and so forth. And this is about security guarantees and such form of realization on the ground of such security guarantees when Ukrainian society and huge number of people which will participate on the national wild electoral process will be protected. Ukraine is a huge country. We had 29,000 polling stations before full-scale invasion and more than 33,000 polling stations before Crimea was occupied and partially Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast. Regularly, the numbers of members of electoral commissions are more than 500,000 of commissioners. We need to develop this system of reactions about foreign, first of all, Russian interference on electoral process, but we need to start from the start. And we, as Opora, developed already map. It's like a frame, step by step. What do we need to start for election preparation? And this is about minimum 12 months of global and internal activity. This is about special legislation for ad hoc first post-war elections. This is about pre-election security audit of the communities which will have or not have elections because of insecurity there. This is about transition of power from military to civilians, because if we will have local election, then military administrations on the ground needs to expire from those territories where it's not a very, big problem. But first of all—
Can you come to an end, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, please?
Yes, 1 minute. But okay, I will share all of these materials, and if you will have time, you will read it. So, but my last point that when I am listening that Ukraine needs to organize elections during 3 months, 4 months, it looks like people are living in a bubbles or in, I don't know, other universe. Just ask OSCE or DIR how much time will they need to deploy election observation mission. Without international election observation mission and without domestic election observation mission, that elections will be shamed and blamed from outside, from Musk, from Trump, from Putin, from their relatives, it doesn't matter. And it will be a huge problem because it's about legitimacy of the power of Ukrainians and branches of the power. And this is about strength to continue defense ourselves from the occupation, which is the worst type of the life. And I have to say that OSCE ODIHR needs more than 9 months for deploying this mission after the time when they will have a budget. I have direct discussions with them. It's just an example, and it's just a small mind exercise. How much time will we need for organizing this process? Look on OSCE ODIHR. If they need 9 months for small mission, how much time Ukraine will need? So thank you for your attention. I will share that documents which I mentioned, and I already shared the statement of more than 400 Ukrainian NGOs.
Thank you very much. I would just do one round of questions and then give it back to the panel. We have 15 minutes left, so please shortly introduce and focus on questions. Karl-Heinz Kamp is the first.
Thank you very much, Karl-Heinz Kamp from Rome. A question to András. You, I think, completely correctly said that also the Russians have severe problems with their military hardware. So they're burning basically all the modern hardware. What they produce is based on old material and so on, and they're running out of this. How comes then that we have these reports in Germany, in Europe, about the Russians being able to rearm in 3 years? The former director of the DGAP comes up with these figures that they produce 1,500 tanks a year. It seems to me completely unrealistic, particularly given the sanctions, as weak as they might be. So how come that we still have this idea of in 5 years or 3 years, the Russians are standing before Berlin or Hamburg?
Thank you. Very, very important question. Wilfried?
Yes, thank you. Wilfried Gilge, Associate Fellow at the DGAP, at the German Council on Foreign Relations, and advisor on Ukraine and wider Black Sea at the stabilization platform. I have a question to Olha. Olha, I think what we already see, if we look at the frontier zones, the media sphere will be very important for the elections. We see already how Russia is working with young people, frustrated young people, yes, and tries to provoke by telegram channels to do some sabotage or something like that. What can be done here? Where should be here maybe Western support? Is it about regional platforms, media platforms? Maybe you can a little bit elaborate on that. And the second point is, you spoke about the MAGA campaign. I think another very important topic for entry points of Russian interference is the problem of the Orthodox Church, which Russia has promoted again at the United Nations. My question to you is, when it comes to candidates for some positions, I heard from specialists in Ukraine that there maybe should also be lustration of problematic, for example, deputies which are coming still from the Yanukovych side in the, for example, Eastern local parliaments, or there should be somehow a control or a mechanism to check people which have a problematic background. Maybe you can also elaborate on that. And to András, one question about Kursk. What I got in Kiev 2 weeks ago, thank you for your analysis, András. You said, of course, the Ukrainians already lost a little bit more than the half of what they got when they entered in Kursk in August. But what I heard, there's also some kind of stabilization. What I heard that there is the building up of a fortification line at the Russian soil and also behind the Russian border. So can we say that they lost, of course, much, but there is still some stable stripe or zone which Ukrainians at the moment can quite successfully hold on? Thank you.
Thank you. Mario?
Yeah, good morning. Mario Baumann, Research Fellow at the DGAP. I had a question to Ina Sovsun. I think it's very interesting that societal resolve consolidated after these false accusations by Donald Trump. And I think the Ukrainian leadership was actually quite or impressively adapted to the new logic in Washington. I was just wondering how the Ukrainian discourse changed after these recent developments, the discourse on NATO, and especially whether there was a shift to kind of a change in expectations towards other European states.
Thank you. I would add two more questions and then I give it back. Ina, I wanted to ask you, because that was also a big question in the chat about the raw material deal with the US. How do you see this also will Ukraine sign it without security guarantees? And how do you see at all this whole debate, which is for me, I don't know, it's not only ridiculous, but I think it's also a typical Trump thing where we have to see what in the end we will get out of it. But what is the Ukrainian strategy maybe on this raw material deal? And I would ask Olha on USID, how this impacts on the ability to act or to work also these developments around USID in the US now on Ukrainian civil society.
Okay, so on the question of NATO. Well, that of course is a huge. Okay, so first of all, I need to explain one thing. There was a very definitive dynamics regarding NATO membership in Ukraine. I think prior to the full-scale invasion, there was quite a significant portion of the population who did not support NATO membership. And then in the very first weeks, it skyrocketed. And then it's an absolute majority. I don't have the exact numbers, maybe Ola does have that. But it's definitely like 80–90% of the Ukrainians who want to join NATO because of everything that we have experienced and understanding very well that after all, it's the ultimate security guarantee that we can get. So I think in terms of NATO membership, I think that there is a general understanding that it should still remain on the table, that we cannot simply give it up, because and I think that there was overall a general feeling that it's not like we're gonna get into NATO this year or next year. It has never been part of the discussion. I mean, it would be great to do that, but I think realistically speaking, the majority of Ukrainians understood that it's not something that might happen right away. However, with this recent development, with Mr. Trump and his team claiming that NATO is no go, I would say that Ukrainians are still not giving up on NATO. So there is still a feeling that let's keep the discussion going. We still need that at one point. And so on. However, at least on the political level, there is more debate now as to might there be a new architecture of security in the European continent, and then Ukraine can be part of that from the beginning, not joining into the structures that already exist with their rules and so on and so forth. But if NATO is not on the table, I think one huge issue that we need to make sure, again, Ukraine needs strong security guarantees in order to continue functioning as an independent nation. And I think here are other issues which I don't think got enough attention in the public debates internationally, but something that Putin reiterates very strongly, and that is keeping the size of the Ukrainian armed forces. The level of production, of military production, and so on and so forth. That is something that we definitely cannot allow to happen. Because if we don't have NATO guarantees, then the only guarantee of security that we ever can get is the security guarantees of the Ukrainian armed forces. And they will need all the support, at least financial, and then in terms of weapons from the Europeans. If NATO is not on the table right now. There is, because I get the question several times over the last 2 weeks, no major shift in terms of attitudes toward the European Union and integration to the EU. It's still like no one is saying like, oh, the West gave up on us, so we should maybe think about some other strategies. That's not even being discussed at all. So just to mention that. On the second question on the minerals deal, I would say that this is a difficult question right now, of course, because it certainly does feel like the victim of the aggression is being forced to pay reparations. This is not how justice works. This is not how it should be done, and it has never been part of the deal to begin with. When we were negotiating with the Americans, the aid that they were to provide, they never said it will have to pay for that at one point, right? So there is on the one hand, a very strong feeling of injustice, something that I mentioned before in my previous intervention, that we've been forced to pay while Putin is not being forced to do anything. Because the big question here is Ukraine is forced into concessions, but what is really Putin conceding to, except for stopping killing Ukrainians, which doesn't seem like a very good negotiation result. I mean, not that we want him to continue killing, but meaning that it's not like he's been forced into giving something up, really. So there is this feeling of injustice. There is, of course, this great feeling that if we are signing that mineral deal, we should get some security guarantees. That does not seem to be at the on the table right now. However, the minerals deal that was yesterday made public, it's not. I mean, the very idea is still very fine, but it was as bad as everybody thought it would be, and it seems to be a milder version of the initial deals that were being proposed. There are, however, still no certainty in terms of security guarantees. It's also true, and I give it that the security guarantees might be part of the closed door negotiations that we are not privy to, and we don't know that. So I understand that, and I hope that the government is acting on behalf of the Ukraine. And I'm MP from the opposition, but I still believe that they can't simply be giving up Ukraine's interests altogether. But of course, I think that the stronger the European voice is heard in those discussions, the better deal Ukraine will get at the end. Now, sorry for a bit of a messy response, but I think that is what the situation is right now. So there is so much uncertainty and vagueness about what is going on, that's the best I can come up with. Sorry, I will have to say goodbye because I think I have to rush to the
Thank you.
to vote. Right.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us under these circumstances. It was really great to have you, and all the best also. Maybe we move to Ola first, and András has the last word. Let's do it just in this order.
Thank you.
We are running a bit out of time, so maybe you can relatively be short in your answers.
Okay, but no, yes will not be an answer because I see 4 questions and I'm going to be very brief. The question about media during wartime, for first post-war elections is very important stakeholder in a process, especially because we and Ukrainian society used social media, first of all, and telegrams as a source of information about security and political updates. And this is super dangerous because Telegram is a Russian relative source which is collecting the data about users, which is not protected enough, and regular users will not protect their own private data for sure. And this collection, the data, may be used against political will because it's given a chance to collect the biodata for another example. When we mentioned in our statement and some other conversations about security for polling stations, many examples happened during last months, like terroristic attacks against recruiting centers. And according to investigation and cases, we see that people, for example, with a problem with alcohol and drugs, were recruited via Telegram shadow path for doing terroristic attacks against military centers. This is a huge problem because if we will speak about potential elections without peace deal, not ceasefire, ceasefire will be violated thousands of times and nobody from Russians will be responsible physically or legally about that. Russia will use all informational sources. That's why for a little bit check and balance, we need to reload our media space. And first of all, yes, Wilfred, you are very right that this is about bloggers, which are very active with the followers in YouTube. This is about those who are popular, who are opinion leaders. And this is about local medias, which lost huge percent of support because US aid exit from Ukraine because of Trump's decisions. And this will be disaster because we will give all power to communicate with society via those channels which are not protected at all. And my request to international society is to think proactively about security of information. And this is about France, for example, which already had a case with Durov, the CEO of Telegram, and they tried to fix some questions with the rules. But this is a long, let's do a long story short. There is a track. It has to be tracked for social media. It has to be tracked for physical opinion leaders, YouTube bloggers, local medias, which will help to share truth, not fake news, not propaganda, and will not give a chance for propagandistic sources to close the gaps with their information. Illustration, this is a huge question, but I will not answer in detail. This is like a separate 2 hours topic. But I have to say that we need Venice Commission here. After 2022, Venice Commission closed the office. We had very active track of collaboration with Venice Commission before full scale about each of the draft of the law. If we are going to solve the problem for first post-war elections and think proactively about those who step back from Ukrainian interest and Ukrainian constitution and work with Russia with financial support, and they had a chance and hope to destroy Ukrainian sovereignty and state as it is, they had to be punished. But they have to be punished according to court decision, and then they will not be a participant of electoral process. And that's why we need a separate judicial track for the transition. And illustration will not be a tool like political tool for unlegal, because we have to follow all international standards and to be the best of the best in the world on preparation of these post-war elections, or Ukraine will be shamed and blamed from other sources. Back to one point about media, it has to be about foreign medias too. It has to be about, because Russia will focus on your societies for disinform you about our gaps. And they will take 2 or 3 cases, and your audience will believe that this awful happening everywhere. And we have to protect your audience from this disinformation attack too. USAID, this is disaster. This is huge disaster. And it's true that everything what had connection with democracy, rule of law, human rights was stopped. And this night, the majority, if not 100% of the implementers, partners, and sub-grantees got a letter from Trump administration, from Rubio office and State Department that this is the end. So no stop work order anymore. This is the end of agreements, and all programs has to be closed. God bless America. That was the last word in this letter. So God bless America for sure, but let's fight for democracy, even if without America. And last question about NATO. So I have a lot of messages for you about NATO, but NATO and the EU integration are the most united topics for Ukrainian society, and has a huge support from Ukrainians.
Thank you. Thank you very much. András, last word.
Yep, really short and last word in many sense. Wilfried, to your question. Yes, there are Ukraine's best units fighting in the Kursk region. The 47th, the 128th, really the best of the best. Still, the terrain is not suitable for sustaining the defense for years long. You can build fortifications, you can slow down things, but taking into account North Korean heavy artillery, glide bombs, Russian heavy artillery, this thing will unfortunately come to an end at a certain point. Russia will not negotiate about their own territory. They will squeeze the Ukrainians out. The question is the time. To Karl-Heinz's question, I'm in the fortunate position that I never comment the German public debates. The Ukrainian and the Russian is enough. When it comes to Russia's ability to reconstitute its fighting power to the pre-war level, it would take at least 5 to 8 years, not only because of the hardware, but also because of the personal losses. Actually, this would be an excellent research project to map out Russia's ability to reconstitute its fighting power, depending on the scenarios when and how the war ends. And the last thing from my side, this is a moment for farewell. We started this format exactly 3 years ago. I was speaking to you 3 years ago when the full-scale invasion started. However, now we're in the situation that unfortunately, despite the best efforts of our leadership, my contract with DGAP is coming to an end. So this is the last time you hear me in this framework, unless something really unexpected happens. So in a good sense. So all in all, it was a pleasure and an honor to be with you for these 3 years. And I'm very happy that you joined us regularly and listened to what we had to say. Thank you to all of you. Goodbye, Stefan.
Thank you, András. A big thank also to you. I think you were one of the key speakers, yeah, in this format. So I think also thanks to you, I think we have such a huge audience and such a huge interest. I think we will still invite you also, despite maybe not working with us. So big thanks to you. I want to thank also Olha and Ina for joining this event. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's very, very important, also insightful. And I think we really need to go into more details of many of the topics. But I think it's also really important to look beyond the everyday narratives we are increasingly discussing and looking a bit deeper also in many sectors. And again, thanks to the team of DGAP, in particular Anastasia Pochumban, for setting up this event. And we wish you all the best. Have a nice day.